Hi, everybody. Today we're talking. Oh, sorry. Let me back up. Hey, everybody. My name is John Brown, and I'm the main co-host and most of the time the only co-host of the Quadcast. And today I'm presenting a kind of presentation based off a study that I'd recently read, which was the effect of carbohydrate intake on muscle hypertrophy, a systematic review and meta-analysis. Uh, systematic review and meta-analysis are essentially when we look at an entire body of work of research. Systematic review and meta-analyses are the top end, the higher end of what we look at for as far as like quality of work within research within literature, because they kind of tell us essentially they look at everything. So let's say there are studies out that say that fiber is good for you. There's studies out that say that fiber is bad for you, right? So there's a study that says one thing, study says the other. How do we know what's better? How do we aggregate this information? Well, you do a systematic review or meta-analysis and see how many studies say what. If there's only 3 studies that show that fiber is bad, but 3,000 that say that studies that say that fiber is good, then we have evidence or proof that this is more likely the appropriate outcome, the appropriate perspective in which to pay attention to, or the truth to value when it comes to quality information. So that's essentially what systematic review and meta-analysis means as far as why we're looking at that and to that and why that is so important. So about me, my name is John Brown, owner and founder of Empirical Fitness. I'm a cosplayer, I'm a nerd. Check out my Natsu Drag Neo cosplay. I think I did a pretty good job. Big shout out to my cousin who makes my cosplays and helps me kind of throw them together. This one is actually her work, I think, from bottom to top. She did it all for me, except the shoes for me. So yeah, I'm in Austin, Texas. Founded the Facebook group Nerds Lift Weights, and these are the various ways to look me up, contact me, and whatever. So new terminology before we get into things. If you're new to the podcast, if you're new to fitness and or strength conditioning, there are some words that you may see or may not have seen, may not have heard. So I kind of want to go over what those things are, and just to give you like a borderline understanding of what they are and why they're important. And those words will be like anabolism, anabolic, hypertrophy, catabolic, anti-catabolic, and carbohydrates. So anabolism, net protein synthesis to breakdown. So essentially, is when something is ingested, is it signaling? Is it causing more net protein synthesis? Does it create or form more net protein synthesis versus protein breakdown? Right. Hypertrophy, the term, just means the increase in contractile muscle tissue. And essentially, those are actin, myosin filaments. If you want to start anywhere in your research as far as what the contractile unit looks like, the sarcomere is the contractile unit of the cell. Those are overlaid. I don't know how many times, millions of times, I'm guessing, because they're cells. That many times you have actin, myosin filaments that cross bridge and contract over each other. It's really cool to see happen. If you want to like watch a video of it on like YouTube, maybe I'll put that in like the what do you call it? In the comments, a link or something like that to another YouTube video that I think explains it pretty well. But yeah, so that's hypertrophy. Anti-catabolic means reduce protein breakdown, but that doesn't necessarily increase protein synthesis, right? Once again, anabolism is net protein synthesis greater than breakdown. You can have something that prevents breakdown but doesn't necessarily increase protein synthesis. So that's where anti-catabolic comes into play. Carbohydrate, think of that as a sugar molecule. It's one of your macronutrients, including protein, fat, carbs, fiber is technically one of those. It's a carb formation or carb molecule, but technically functions very differently. And then I think you can kind of throw ketones and alcohol in there if you really want to. But yeah, so we have those. Next, now that we know what those definitions are, why does that matter? So the longest time, and for as long as I can remember, I was always told and or thought that carbs were anabolic. Like that theory was kind of like widespread. But what we know now after exploring these definitions is that carbs are anti-catabolic, not anabolic, which are two very different things, right? So then the question comes that we'll answer towards the end of this presentation is what actually drives hypertrophy in animals and what actually helps build muscle. So the study that I first mentioned beginning of this presentation. So carbs are not anabolic. The study, once again, it was the effect of carbohydrate intake on muscle hypertrophy. So what do they look at? They looked at resistance training, measures of building muscle. They only included studies that were like equal in protein and then varied in carb intake, obviously, because you have like high carb, low carb. Conclusion of the meta-analysis was carbs don't build muscle. The signaling from their intake doesn't increase protein synthesis. Once again, the signaling, molecular signaling, like when you eat protein, there is an increase, there's a signaling increase for protein synthesis. So when you do that with carbs, there isn't that same increase. So thus they are not anabolic in nature. They are not necessarily themselves causing hypertrophy. Now you might be like, well, John, if they're not causing hypertrophy, should I eat them? Should I not? Like, obviously, I'm a fan of carbs. I'll probably tell you a little more of that in or towards the end of this presentation. But if you are pro carb, do not lose faith because I have more information to go over with you. The potential drawbacks from the study: only 6 weeks in nature, or only 6 weeks. I think the study focused on, and not every study was 6 weeks. I think there was one that was only 4. Um, but it's not longitudinal, meaning that it's not done for months at a time, right? 6 weeks technically is enough time to see a general change, but like you prefer like longitudinal studies, longer studies that would determine or change like outcomes over time, right? Because things can change over time based off of the stimuli. Like your body is an ever adaptive organism. So like something that might be functioning in the beginning or happening early on in a study might change later on. Another thing that kind of sucked was that studies were not always equating calories. So obviously nothing is perfect, but once again, we're just looking at the general view of the study. These are potential drawbacks, but the rest of the study, pretty quality work. So carbs seem to be anti-catabolic, and this was a study that kind of showed that. It's a good study if you want to look it up. Effect of carbohydrate intake on net muscle protein synthesis during recovery from resistance training. What they found: carb intake post-workout decreased protein breakdown, which means that the decrease of net protein breakdown improves the overall net protein synthesis. So once again, this is the evidence of the carbs being anti-catabolic. So essentially, if you eat some protein, which helps increase protein synthesis, the anabolism, you eat carbs, which help decrease protein breakdown, the anti-catabolicism. I think it's just being anti-catabolic, but I'm going to say anti-catabolicism. You combine those together, the net protein synthesis, how the total protein synthesis is happening, ends up being more positive in your favor. So that's what I found very interesting about these two studies. So this is a reason why and how you should still be intaking your carbs in order to get results because they are in nature anti-catabolic, which means they're going to help your overall net protein synthesis number when compared to protein breakdown. So putting two studies together, anti-catabolic is not the same thing as anabolic. This is an important distinction to have whenever having discussion and or reviewing scientific literature or understanding what's going on with these macronutrients and their effects on your body. The meta-analysis of random control trials shows no clear hypertrophic advantage when proteins are matched. So essentially, you can get results on a high carb diet, you can get results on a low carb diet. However, me personally, my viewpoint, I'm very much pro carbs because you use carbs as a fuel source when training at higher intensity. So if you're someone who trains at intensities, carbs are in your favor. If you're on the keto diet and trying to train at a higher intensity, that is disadvantageous to your gains, your results, and how intense and how hard you're going to be able to train. The keto diet in general, even when protein is equated, I think has proven to be a little bit less effective for muscle gaining. The practical interpretation, like your takeaway, carbs help reduce acute breakdown of protein and support athletic performance. So these two reasons alone are reasons why I think you should be eating carbs. having them in your diet and letting them help you chase these gains and get these results. And lastly, of course, one of the major takeaways: carbs are not the driver for hypertrophy that people thought they were. So, a recommendation for hypertrophy: if building muscle is on the list of things you're trying to do in 2026, these are the things you can do. You can focus on your protein and calorie intake. As far as protein, I recommend 1.8 grams per kilogram of lean body mass. If you want to keep it safe, 1.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. Um, 1 gram per pound of muscle is pretty high for a lot of people, especially if you're up there in weight. So I'm not gonna tell you that much. But once again, technically, to stimulate muscle growth, all you need and to be like on the upper end of being okay, 1.8 grams per kilogram of lean body mass is the minimum. To go above and beyond, 1.8 grams per kilogram of total body weight is above and beyond. Now let's look at mechanical tension. Mechanical tension is mm, the best way I'll describe that is intensity. How intense is the lift that you're doing? How hard are you working during your set of hypertrophy? Meaning, in general, um, the best stimulator for hypertrophy is training close to and or near failure. If you're if the further away you are from failure during your working sets, the less muscle stimuli you're going to have, the less mechanical tension you're going to have. The way people often talk about RIR, reps in reserve, RPE, like how hard that set was, you want to be at least 1 to 3 reps in reserve. You don't have to train to absolute failure to get results. There's just a window. As long as you are close, you're in a good place, and this is good. Lastly, progressive overload over time. This is the principle that means that over time, your workouts, as you adapt and get stronger, your workouts will have to adapt as well. They will have to change as well because you have to lift more weight or to continue to build mechanical tension. For example, I'm a newbie lifter to the gym. I just started doing barbell basketball. So maybe 3 sets of 135, I'm probably wrecked. 3 sets of 135 6 months down the line isn't going to do anything. I can add more load. Let's say do 185, 3 sets of 10. That obviously will help me like increase more intensity, or I can stay with 135 and just do way more reps over time. That will also get me closer to failure and increase my mechanical tension. I'm a fan of lifting heavier load with a lower rep scheme personally, just because you don't have to deal with system fatigue. System fatigue is essentially the aerobic response that you get from lifting. If you do a set of failure 230, you're going to be breathing pretty hard towards the end, and you don't really want to be worried about breathing too hard when doing compound lifts. I think it's a little different when you're doing isolation lifts like bicep curls, tricep stuff, calf stuff. You can kind of go higher in reps without creating an aerobic response. The end. If you found this presentation informative, if you found this episode of the Quadcast awesome, you're like, I'm learning so much from this guy. Well, you can learn more from me. If you want nutrition gains, use your phone, scan this barcode, take a screenshot, or use a friend to scan this barcode. You can work with me or one of my coaches, and we'll help you get these nutrition gains going. We'll help you with information. We'll help you set your calories, your protein, your fiber, and kind of give you the tools you need in order to see success. The key thing that most people aren't seeing success from what I've seen from my clients, as far as like the evidence pool, is a lot of people don't know or aren't keeping track of how much they're eating. They're kind of going by feel, and I've had this argument with my pops quite a few times. He's on a GLP-1 right now, and he's like, John, and he was off one for a little bit. And he was like, yeah, and he gained his weight back. He was like, John, when I'm off my GLP-1, I just need to quiet the food noise. I'm like, that's not how that works. The food noise that he's talking about on the cellular level is going on inside the body. It's a decrease in leptin, increase in ghrelin, and the food noise is like the thirst for a vampire in Blade, right? It always wins. You can only fight it for so long unless you reverse diet to restore yourself to your kind of caloric neutral, your caloric balance that you should be at your given weight after you've lost said weight before trying to lose more weight again. You don't know what reverse diet is? Once again, definitely scan that barcode. Talk to me, one of my staff, and we'll tell you about how to best get results using nutrition and answer a lot of these questions. But once again, This is the end of my Quadcast episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it informative. If you have questions about carbs, nutrition, results, throw them in the comments. If you want to learn more, or if there's a specific subject or topic that you're interested in, go and throw that in the comments. I'd love to make a podcast episode about it. I want this thing to be as interactive as the people who listen to it would like it to be. But yeah, guys, thanks for tuning on to this episode of the Quadcast. We'll see you on the next one. Later.